Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone around the world. I am Paul Sisler, and I am the host of In the Moment. Hello, hello, hello. Today on Becoming Stoic, we are going to talk about the cardinal virtues: courage, justice, wisdom, temperance. And the perfect person to do that with is Benny, the Stoic Padawan. And before I bring Benny on, I wanted to say thank you to Bryce for pointing out that error that I had on Epictetus's name. I left out a C. It's been fixed. So when you run through it, you'll see it. All right. Hello, Benny. How are you doing today?
Hey, Paul. Good to be back. Nice. Another week. Great topic. Looking forward to this one. And how are you doing?
I am doing good. I'm excited. I'm looking forward to this. So it's going to be nice to start breaking into these aspects of Stoicism. Again, to educate, to teach, to learn all these different things for all of us and all that. We're all going through this lifeline. Everybody's in the same line of life. There's no getting out of it. There's no cutting ahead or anything like that. This line that we're in, that's life, we're all on the same path. So I think the teachings of Stoicism is very, very important. And I believe if more people actually got on this pathway, the life path would be more enjoyable for everyone. But there we go.
I agree, and again, at the beginning of these conversations, it's not like turning people into Stoics, right? It's not showing people what is out there and using the little bits of knowledge to their advantage, right? To make their lives just easier and better.
Exactly. And, today I tell you, I took my pup for a walk, and I had this person that started in an accusatory manner about my dog leaving poo-poo on the ground. And I take little doggy bags with me, and I pick up my dog's poo-poo. But it started out accusatory, and again, I showed her my bags and stuff like that, and it's just like, there's other dogs, blah blah blah, and we ended up having a conversation, and we actually left on smiling with each other. So again, if everybody exerts a little kindness and a little happiness, even people that sometimes may come at you in a aggressive manner sometimes, or what feels like an aggressive manner, there's a chance I may have perceived that all wrong. She may not have been aggressive. I may have just interpreted it that way. But the bottom line is that we ended on a good note. We ended up, having a smile and had conversation and gave a wave, and I went on my way and she went back her way. So again, acts of kindness and all that, it can go a long ways.
Yeah, and there's some good teachings and Stoics and Epictetus. Some stories come to mind where you don't know what people are going through in their lives, and you might be going through stuff in their lives, but that shouldn't influence the interactions that we have with others. Basically, we should always try to find each other on neutral grounds and then build from there. And if someone isn't respectful, then you can turn around and say that's it, Or if they're good, hey, they have a great conversation. So great to hear that you turned that around and made it into something good. Because sometimes people, they just want to start an argument just for, I don't know what reason.
Argument's sake, yes.
yeah, exactly.
All right.
Exactly.
If you could kind of give everybody a rundown on what Stoicism is, and then we'll get into the 4 cardinal virtues.
Yeah, excellent. So Stoicism is a Hellenistic philosophy. It started from ancient Greece. It kind of derived from the Cynics, has those Socratic ideas in there. So it's kind of a mix. It bases itself on logic, physics, and ethics. And its main concept is to live virtuous, and that's something that we're going to talk about today. But also to live in accordance with nature, to know who you are, and to find a peaceful way of living with or even because of the obstacles that we have, right? To make sure that we learn how to deal with them in a proper way. So There's many tools of that. One of the famous one is the dichotomy of control, to start with what is in your control and what isn't in your control, to really make that distinction clear. We can definitely have a good conversation about that some other time. But yeah, stoicism is basically to try to live a peaceful life using using virtues to live a good life, to really live to the highest standards. And I think that that's something that we're going to delve into today. And most of all, it is a practical philosophy. It's not something that is just written in books, not something that we need to memorize. No, we need to learn, we need to study, we need to talk about it, discuss, such as these. But at the end of the day, the real meat on the bone is when we put it into practice. I think that that's where it really matters, where the difference is made. So we can study, we can read all we want, but at the end of the day, as your example, that's a moment where you can put stoicism into practice, where you can take yourself from the situation and say, okay, what is really going on, and why am I getting so upset, or what is happening to me, and then we can apply reason and logic to the situation. And that's another key aspect of stoicism, because quickly, if we look at the Stoic concept of God, it's the universal reason, the rational universe, and we've been given a part of that, the reason and logic side. So we do have, the passions, the emotions, with the rest of the animals, our drive to survive, but we've been given something extra to be able to objectively look at all events around us and then apply reason and logic to the situation and make sure that we choose the right action, right? And for that, we need to observe. We need to make sure that we have all the information, find the truth, and then make the best, take the best course of action, or our opinions, our judgments on those things, make sure that they are right, not coming from a sense of emotions or anything like that. So that's pretty much, a rough outline of what Stoicism is. And I don't know if you want to add something to that, Paul.
No, it's that was perfect and all that. And I think that a lot of people, I'm just going to throw this in there and all that they believe that Stoics don't have emotions, and that's a misconception. People that live by the philosophy of Stoicism are usually very emotional, and the art of Stoicism is to be able to hold back those emotions and not let the emotions dictate your actions. So I just wanted to clarify that if people have that confusing aspect, like a Stoic, they don't have any emotions. Oh no, Stoics have emotions. We have just trained ourselves to hold those emotions back and allow ourselves to feel them when appropriate, and not guide our actions. Because if you allow your emotions to guide you, especially emotions of anger, that can sometimes lead to violence or bad things. So it's always best to keep your emotions under control and look at things in an analytical way. And the reason why we're bringing in virtues and all that, because to live by the virtues, you're going to determine what are the appropriate and perfect acts in life, and somebody that's a Stoic will utilize all four of these virtues in their thought process as they're encountering or dealing with whatever it is that they're dealing with. When it comes to solving problems, when it comes to engaging with other people, these four virtues you have to utilize simultaneously to be able to understand what is going on and how to respond. And if you're not doing that, then technically you're not, in a Stoic's eyes, you're not virtuous, but you're trying to be virtuous. So once you accomplish that and you can utilize all four of these, then you are considered to be virtuous. So, and again, this isn't a put down to anybody or anyone based on any beliefs or anything that they may have, or how they see the world, or how they see Stoicism, or anything like that. It's just that this is kind of where I come from in my relationship with the philosophy of Stoicism and how I see it, and where Bryce and Benny and a few others that we've talked to, they kind of go back more to Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, Seneca, and Zeno. I go back to the Pythagoreans. That's kind of where my base is. So, and we all have different beliefs and, again, different bases in this. But they all come from a lot of the ancient writers like Aristotle and Socrates and, so on. So, I mean, they all have these practices, and they're all teaching in some aspect the same thing. They just might perceive it in a different way in relation to its teachings. So there's my thoughts on it.
Yeah, no, and that's lovely put. And I wanted to add to the part of the emotions that you mentioned, because that's a really important part to understand, right? And as we go through the virtues, and I would add to it that not just, learning to control them, it's learning from them, learning from our emotions. The one of the basics that was obviously oftentimes misquoted to, I think it was Socrates, it's like know thyself. That was actually put on the oracle in Delphi. But it's one of those big maxims, right? Know thyself, the foundation of everything. And how can we learn more about ourselves? It's because of these emotions. These emotions, they tell us a lot about themselves. And it's not to repress them. It's to make sure that we know where they're coming from. So the reason why we want to separate them from our actions is that a lot of the times they cloud our judgment. They give us a subjective view on what is really going on. And the only way we can apply that reason and logic if we look at the objective side. And last week you've mentioned, to become an observer, which is a really interesting point, to really distance yourself from what is going on and say, what is the right action that I've got to take? And then there is a time for emotions, right? There is the proper time for grief, for anger. Although they say with anger, you've got to quench that as soon as you can, because it will often lead to destruction and lead to control you, because it's a vicious one. Yeah, you can read, Seneca has an essay on anger. You can read a lot of things been written on anger. So there are certain emotions that we have to be more careful with, but others we can, then we apply temperance, one of the other virtues that we're going to talk about. But then we apply that. But I think for me, the emotions are a well of information about ourselves. And in order to, and we're going to pass all the, we're going to pass all the virtues, but in order to learn from it, we need to have the courage to investigate them, right? So again, you can see that the virtues are coming back all the time. So I just wanted to add that, and as you said, it's not about just focusing on stoicism. If that doesn't appeal to you, there's a lot of different ways, but it all comes down to the same. Know yourself, introspection, learn about yourself, and act in a reasoned and logical manner. I think that gives you at the long end, that gives you the most peace of life. That's what we're looking for, to live a peaceful life, to enjoy it.
Yes, absolutely. Now, of the four virtues and all that, courage, justice, wisdom, temperance, they're all very, very important, and they all work very, very well together. You have to utilize them all together if you truly want to live virtuous. What would you say is the most important one in your eyes that people should probably learn first? And then the second question to that would be, which one do you think most people already try to utilize or utilize without even knowing it?
Yeah, that's a good question, and maybe we can take it a step back first to look at what virtue is, because to see like what is virtue. For some people who struggle with that concept, and I think that is, to act out of a moral, to have moral behavior, to be morally right, and that's why it's split up into four parts: the wisdom, the justice, courage, and the temperance. So that those are, we have the vices on the other side, So when we look at virtue, it's pretty much meaning to live a good life. So at least that's a very brief kind of summary of virtue. I don't know if you wanted to add something to that before I go to your question, but yeah, for me, that's kind of to be virtuous. That's why the Stoics say that's the highest good. If you look at the rivaling school back in the day, the Epicureans, they said, no, pleasure is the ultimate good, right? But the Stoics, they say, okay, you can have pleasure but not be virtuous, but you can be virtuous and always have pleasure, right? Because virtue will always lead to kind of joy, to contentment, because you are doing the right thing. I don't know if you wanted to add something to that as well.
Maybe a little bit, because I know that there's a lot of people when they think of somebody living virtuously, sometimes they confuse that with innocence and purity. And that's not the case. That's not the case. You try to live with purity, and for the innocence aspect is, when you're acquiring wisdom, you're going to learn about bad things and atrocities and stuff like that, and you may live some of those things yourself. So there is no innocence in virtue. To try to live without causing harm, I think, would be a better representation instead of innocence. So I wanted to, in my view, I wanted to clarify that living virtuous is to, yes, be morally correct, to do what's right, but it also for me means causing no harm. And for me, that's like the important aspect, to cause no other creature harm. So, and if the Pythagoreans, they got more into nature. And again, there's going to be a lot of people who are going to bite. But Paul, they were very brutal to each other. Yes, they were. But that's not the aspect of them that I like. Okay. There's a lot of different aspects on a lot of these ancient teachers that I truly appreciate and like. But for me, truly a virtuous person is somebody that also is one with nature and has respect for nature, but also doesn't want to do any harm to those that live within nature itself. So I kind of wanted to add that about virtue, but there you go.
Yeah, and there's an interesting concept as well to think about, because it's also to think about the greater good, right? That's often a critique on Stoicism, that it's selfish and that you have to only work on yourself, but you're doing that for the greater good. And sometimes then it kind of comes like, okay, who do I choose for? We see a lot of the battles. For example, Marcus Aurelius, he spent most of his years during his emperorship in a war fighting the Germanians. And he did that to save or to protect his people, right? To an emperor. Okay, we can talk about how just that was and all that stuff, but that's also a part, right? Sometimes it means to stand up for those who need you as their shield. So I think that is also, that's why reason and logic come in place. You need to take this situation and say, okay, this is what's happening and this is what I'm doing. And again, but it all comes down to, maybe to add that again, that, the living in accordance with nature. I think that is also a big part of the virtuous how to live.
Yeah.
To see what is happening with nature, and you live in accordance with your own nature, but also with the nature in general. So yeah, I think that was a great addition to it, to not cause harm to not cause unjust harm. I think that's because sometimes we need to, and harm isn't always physically, right? Harm can also be in other ways. So there's that as well.
Yes, mental and psychological. So back to the question then. Which one do you think is the most important to learn first, and which one do you believe people are already utilizing without knowing it?
That's a good question. And I think I think first we would talk about wisdom, right? I think because philosophy means, the love for wisdom. So that's pretty much where it boils down to. We need to first know the truth. We need to first know what it is that everything contains, the nature, the universe, ourselves. So, and that is a journey that we have to go on ourselves. That's a unique path that we have to go on. And whether everybody's already doing that, a lot of the people that I encounter, that I interact with are, right? You're asking yourself those difficult questions. Why am I feeling this? Why is this bothering me? What do I want to do? What is the purpose of my life? All of these big questions, and some of them, we simply don't have an answer to. But the fact that we are asking those questions shows us that we are on the right path of progress. So I think wisdom is probably one of the foundational ones. And then the others, I think that is a very unique personal question as well. It depends on what you are struggling with the most. For example, if we read Marcus Aurelius, he was struggling with anger, right? And he was the emperor. So he had to be just. He had to make sure that he was treating the people around him the best he could from a virtue standpoint. So he's probably applying more justice. But we can see him looking at temperance well. And for me, I think how we are living at the moment, temperance is probably one of them that we could all, apply a little bit more. And how we deal with people and how we are influenced by all the externals around us and what we want to accumulate, our possessions. And you can see that a lot on the social media platforms and the people we interact with. We always want more, right? We always have to build bigger. We have to want more. We have to add more to our name. We have to have more titles. So I think, I personally, for me, that was one of the biggest ones, with food and with drinking and with all these other things. I used to go into excess, doing more, better, don't stop. But temperance really showed me that it's you get more value out of things if you learn to appreciate it in the level that you have it, right? You don't always need to want more. So I think temperance would probably be, for a lot of us, one of the biggest virtues to practice, and also the most practical to act on. I think it's one of them that you can always find the right way to use, and you can find so many examples in your life where you say, "Oh, temperance, this is it," right? With the emotions, with at work, with our interactions with people, we don't always have to go overboard. We can stay in moderation, and that's why I always like to look at Aristotle's golden mean, where he gives a lot of really good examples. Where he gives the excess, on the low side, and then in the middle, that's where we find that golden spot. So yeah, I think temperance is nowadays one of those that we have to apply a little bit more. I don't know how you see that, Paul.
Well, I think wisdom is probably the most important part of the building block, because with that, the other three will fall in line. Because I think if you have the knowledge, when you know what's good and bad, when you know what's right and wrong, and there's differences there between right and wrong and good and bad. Okay. Because you're talking culturally, you're talking your own belief systems, you're talking ethically, there's so many aspects that come into play when you're talking about what's right, what's wrong, what's good, what's bad. That's why it's called wisdom. You learn these things, and life experience, starting from a young age, you learn that if you touch this and it's hot, you're going to get burned. That's where wisdom comes in. You're going to be careful when you do things. So you stick your finger on the mouse trap, it breaks your finger. You understand that, oh wow, I shouldn't be sticking my finger in traps. These are the aspects of wisdom and all that. You learn through things, and it's the application of that wisdom where the importance comes in. And that's where standing back as the observer and learning, observing, seeing what happens with other people. That's why it has such great importance, because now you can see that sometimes this action was a good action and other times this action is a bad action. So how does it weigh in for me? Should I do this or this? So in other words, there's a house on fire. Somebody runs in, saves the people, comes out as a hero. Another person runs in another fire, and they don't come out and they don't save anybody. So it's like, so what should I do in this situation? There's a house burning. Should I run into it or not? I could die, but I could also save a life. Do I want to be a hero? Now that's me wanting this for myself. That's not the way it should be. I should be doing it because I'm going to actually possibly save somebody. It should be about saving somebody, not for my. So that's where wisdom comes in everyday life and everything. So I think wisdom is like the foundational aspect of Stoicism. But I also think that courage is what most people experience on a daily basis, that they don't recognize that that's an aspect of Stoicism that they're dealing with and all that. Because that's how you act during trying times, And in this world today, there's a lot of poverty, there's homelessness, there's so many different things going on politically. And there's people that hate people because of the color of their skin or the country they come from or their sexuality and stuff like that. I think that courage is huge, because there's a lot of people that are going through a lot of things and they're acting in a good way to get through these situations. Again, poverty, trying to pay your bills, taking on a job, an extra job, trying to take care of your family at the same time. Making it through all of these things that's courage. And I think a lot of people are utilizing that aspect of stoicism on a daily basis and they just don't know it. Um, so I think for me, wisdom and courage are probably the two aspects that through the things that you live, you're going to acquire that wisdom. So for me, learning about wisdom and stoicism is probably the strongest thing to learn about, because then when it comes to courage and then justice and then temperance, it's going to make it easier to apply those to your learnings.
No, I definitely agree, and I think that that's a good way to start when you talk about the virtues, right? To delve more into wisdom, to make sure that that is, as you said, I think that that's the foundational part of the virtues. I think that that's the one that encompasses everything, but that can be said for each of those, right? And as you were talking about courage, just to quickly add to that, I think it's, and we use it on so many deeper levels as well, our internal levels, many different decisions that we have to make, maybe even at work or maybe at home, where you have to say something to someone who you hold dear, but you have to tell them the truth. But that also takes a lot of courage. Or at work, when you have to admit a mistake, right? When you have to say, "I've made a mistake," you've got to come clean, and you've got to those are the differences where you can find that peace of mind. Because if you take that courage to really take responsibility for your actions, then at least at the end of the day, you can say, hey, you know what? I've made some mistakes, but at least I've been true to myself, I've been true to everybody else, I've been honest. They can ask me at any moment what's on my mind, and I can give them my thoughts. Why? Because I've been courageous. And it's on those small details. And as you said, for other people, who are dealing with stuff, but also for yourself. But I think, as we talk about, I think wisdom it's something really to look into, right? And wisdom is often seen as accumulating knowledge, right? And a lot of people you see is like, oh, I've read so many books. Oh, I've listened to all these audiobooks. I've seen all these shows. I've learned everything here. And nowadays, when we look at philosophy and we think about philosophers, we see people are in a university, right? We see people who know all the text by heart, who know everything, that they can quote everything. They know all the underpinning ideas and beliefs of everything. But when we look at the philosophers back in the day, they were just living on the street. They were putting it into practice, right? They were making sure that you have the knowledge, you think about those questions, but at the end of the day, the true wise person can put it into action. The true wise person doesn't just say these things like a sophist, but actually uses them. And then, that leads the question, like, who are the wise people now, right? Who would be considered to be wise? And for example, in my case, I would look at the people close to me. Who do I go to for counsel? Who do I ask for advice in certain needs? So when we have that wisdom, we talk about what is their knowledge and how can they offer it to me. Those are usually people you look up to. So then when we look at wisdom, we can see, okay, people have experience, life experience, and they can give that experience to someone on a righteous, on a right way, to other people to learn from and to grow. So usually, the wise person is like a leader, like someone who we can look up to. So when we look at those examples, we can delve a little bit more into wisdom. I don't know, when we say, like, what is a wise person, who comes to mind to you, Paul? If you think about, what is a wise person?
Oh, there's a multitude of levels for that. Like my father, I consider my father to have been a wise man. Even though he was ignorant in many ways, he had a lot of ignorance also. But the things that were important to life's lessons, you might say, he had a lot of wisdom. He would tell me different things and all that, like your name is the only thing you have, and how people know you will be by your name. So make sure that your name is a good name. And when you're young, you're just like, yeah, what do you know, old man? And then as you grow older and all that, you realize that, wow, if your name develops a bad reputation of that, that you're a liar or you're untrustworthy, you never show up on time or anything like that, that's going to harm you down the road. Versus if people know you as someone that always shows up on time, is always there. If you call them at 3 o'clock in the morning, you know they're going to pick up because that's just who they are. They're somebody that if they say they're going to do something, they actually do it. The wisdom isn't being that person that does the good or the bad. The wisdom comes in knowing that that's your name and your reputation, and people are going to recognize you by that. So make sure that you attach the good things to your name and be who you say you are. So that's where the wisdom comes in. So I'd have to say my father is a wise person. I think that we've encountered a lot of people throughout history. I think a lot of the Stoics and philosophers that we read from and learn from, I think a lot of them were wise. I had some teachers that I felt were pretty wise in their life experience. There were other teachers that, even though they were very knowledgeable on a topic or something, I just don't think that they had very much wisdom, because they were real good at repeating stuff from a book, but they had no experience with it. So again, experience, wisdom comes with experience. And Bryce actually posted up here on the chat, wisdom isn't knowledge. Many people have knowledge. Absolutely agree. Wisdom is experimental. It's the best practiced application of that knowledge that produce the best outcomes, proven results. And yes, that's exactly it. I mean, you keep sticking your finger in the mousetrap, you know what it's going to do. You have the knowledge, but knowing that you shouldn't stick your finger in the mousetrap is the wisdom that comes with it. So, yes, and I know I'm kind of making it light in that aspect, but it's the experience. I can tell you not to stick your finger in a mousetrap, and you can take that knowledge and look at the mechanics of it, where you would grow and utilize that wisdom that was taught to you. You wouldn't stick your finger in the mousetrap. You would stick a stick in the mousetrap, because you now want the knowledge yourself of the mechanics of the mousetrap. That's wisdom, because now you're taking what you've learned from someone else and you're applying it to a practicality of learning why. So there's wisdom in that. You don't have to stick your finger in the mousetrap to gain that wisdom. You can stick a stick in it. You can take the
and I think.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, you take that knowledge and you for me, then it's when we delve into this, and that's why it's great to kind of examine this. Wisdom is shown in actions most of the time, right? If you have that wise person, you want to say, okay, this is my example. I want to follow this person. They prove themselves by their actions. I've been saying, that if your words are like your currency, and when back in the day the dollar, currency was backed by gold, then your actions are the gold, right? Your actions are that precious metal that back up your words. And the more your actions show who you are, and in your actions, if your actions are right, you can be labeled as a wise person. Most wise people don't label themselves that way. A lot of people say, hey, this person is living the right way. He's not sticking his finger in the mousetrap. He's using something else. He's using reason and logic, applying that to the situation. So in that case, you can see, okay, this person is acting wise. So maybe let's listen to him. Maybe let's listen to her, what she has to say. Maybe there's some truth behind it, right? Why is she always using the right actions? She must know something more. So then we have that knowledge, and we can apply that to our actions. And the actions is what shows the people how we are, or who we are, and what we stand for. And I think that is where what Bryce has said, proven results. Those are the actions. I think that is what really matters, and where we can kind of filter out the people who are just, as you mentioned, regurgitating words, regurgitating knowledge, information from others, but those who actually practice it. So if someone is talking to you about you shouldn't be angry, but they get angry because they're not doing it, then maybe it's the right person to ask for advice, to ask for counsel on that topic. So again, I think, and go through the wisdoms, action and practical use of these things is always at the center, where they really come to terms, because that's what Stoicism is, and philosophy back in the day. It's a lived philosophy. And I really hope that people who are listening to this think about themselves and ask themselves, what is my philosophy of life and how can I put it into practice? Because that's really where it matters. So when we talk about wisdom, I think, you're right. It's about those actions where we see
Yes.
the result of the knowledge that we have gained, of the information that we have obtained, and we know how to use it the proper way.
Yes. Yes. Another aspect that I'm going to bring into it and all that. Um, I know that we've all had teachers when we were in elementary school, high school, middle school, college, university, whatever. Um, even on the job, people that are trying to teach you how to do a job. There's a lot of times where they will tell you how something is supposed to be done, and very few actually take the time to show you how it's to be done. And I think one of the biggest um, aspects of comprehension that I received was when I was learning how to deal craps. Bryce is going to love this. This is casino talk. He loves talk about the casino. But I had my craps instructor, Don Henson, great man. Always used to say, slow down, you'll go faster. Slow down, you'll go faster. And as I'm learning this game and all that, he would come up and he would say, now do this. And he would show me, go slow, go slow, take your time, practice it. And slowly you can speed up and speed up and speed up. And eventually it's going to become secondhand nature to you. And when it becomes secondhand nature, you're going to do it without thinking. You don't have to think about it any longer. Right now, you're learning it, so you still have to think about it. There'll come a point where you don't think, you just simply do. And when you hit that point, you'll know it, you'll realize it. And that's where the wisdom came in. He took the time to show me and explain to me the process, and that is wisdom, you know? So that's why I became a phenomenal craps dealer. But that's another story. Bryce says, the cool thing about wisdom is that you can learn from others' experiences as well as our own. Average people learn from firsthand experience. Extraordinary people learn from others' experiences and apply it. Absolutely. Absolutely. So, no, yeah, that's the thing about wisdom and all that. Everybody acquires wisdom to some degree. Okay? Everybody. Because everybody's learning something to some degree. Even a stupid person, and let me clarify between the difference between ignorance and stupid. Okay, stupidity, somebody that is stupid can only learn to a certain level, and that's it. They can't learn beyond that. They're incapable of learning beyond this point. An ignorant person is somebody that's without knowledge. They can continue to learn and grow, but choose not to. So when it comes to brain surgery, I am ignorant and I choose not to learn how to be a brain surgeon because I don't find it applicable to my life. So I remain ignorant when it comes to brain surgery. Now, with that said, everybody is capable of learning to whatever degree their ability is. And with that, they are going to acquire some wisdom. Everyone's going to acquire some wisdom. It's those that take it into a further advance of wanting to know, the desire to have that knowledge, and how to best apply that knowledge. And are there other ways of doing whatever it is that is being done? Is there a better way to do it? Is there a better way to apply it? Is there somebody else that has another way to do it? How do they do it? This is where wisdom comes in, because the wise person isn't someone that has all knowledge and all experience. The wise person is also someone that wants to acquire more knowledge and more experience and try to figure out how to do things better. Why should we do things better? What are the benefits of doing things better?
Yeah, no, I agree. And real quickly, as you said about your experience as a craps dealer, and we'd love to hear more stories about that. That sounds really interesting. But it also reminded me of the book by Daniel Kahneman, Thinking Fast and Slow, where the more you do those repetitive movements, they become more inherent to who you are and to your routines and habits. So they go to that first automatic brain, thinking of your brain. So that's a definite recommendation for anyone who hasn't read that one. They're Thinking Fast and Slow, and I'm sure Bryce is smiling back there as he hears the title, because it's a book it's a great book. And I would like to add to the wisdom. I'm not sure if we can really acquire wisdom, but I think it's something that we develop. And it's because we acquire knowledge, right? We acquire the information. We can study, we can study to become a brain surgeon and not use it for the right way. And I think that is something. The same thing with Stoicism. You can see a lot of people, they've read something about Stoicism. They have some knowledge, and I agree. They probably remain ignorant with really wanting to learn what it is, and it's a lack of curiosity, motivation, and all of that stuff. And if we look at the Stoics, they say, a person doesn't do bad things. They don't do bad things willingly. They do it out of ignorance. They do it because they don't know what the right thing to do is. Right? And that's for us to learn. So we learn, we observe, we get all the information. And then from that, we develop wisdom to know what to apply in the right situation. We know how to seek out the truth. Right? And that's something that even nowadays, with all the information that we have, it is difficult to find it, because you get all different angles, views. What is it, right? What is the real actual thing that's happening? So in that sense, we have to acquire all the knowledge, information, and we develop the skills to look at it from an objective point of view and apply reason and logic. And I think that's where the wisdom is developed, because that's where your experiences, everything can kind of accumulate, and you grow, you build upon your own knowledge. So for me, it's not a sense of acquiring wisdom, it's being open to develop it, being open to use everything in the right way that it should be. I'm not sure if you agree with me on that one.
I agree. In my speaking, I may have misappropriated the word, not my intent. Everybody is born with that innate ability of analyzation. Okay. How we utilize analyzation is going to determine how wise we become. Okay. It is a skill set. I agree with that. Wisdom is a skill set. Everybody receives knowledge. Okay. Everybody receives knowledge. What you do with that knowledge is where wisdom comes in. Okay. If a wise person shares information with you, they're not sharing wisdom, they're still sharing knowledge. Okay. And I think there's where the confusion might come in for some people. A wise person, when they're sharing something with you, they're not sharing wisdom, they're sharing knowledge that they've acquired from their wisdom. Okay. Everybody's ability when it comes to wisdom has to do with their analytical skills, their critical thinking skills, the ability to break things down and analyze it and come to utilize deductive reasoning to come up with a end result. And that is in itself wisdom. Okay. It's that practice. It's like Bryce says right up here. Wisdom isn't knowledge. Many people have knowledge. Wisdom is experiential. It's the best practice application of that knowledge that produce the best outcomes, proven results. Okay. When you are given information, again, I can go back to the mousetrap, I can go back to the burning house, whatever the case is. you have that knowledge, okay? Everybody acquires knowledge through the words of others, through the experience, through the whatever. Everybody acquires knowledge to some degree. It's how you apply that. And that's where the wisdom comes in. And people that keep trying to do the same thing over and over again, expecting a different outcome, have not gained that wisdom to look for another route or another way or something different or something better. They keep applying the same thing. That is knowledge of a thing that they continue to do the same way, expecting a different outcome. Somebody that realizes that, okay, I've done it this way, it didn't work. Maybe I'll try it again. Maybe there's something I didn't do right. And they're going to look at it more intently and they're going to do it. And the outcome is the same. They might try it one more time just to make sure everything was correct, everything was, the way it was supposed to be, and it's still the same. Now, the person that doesn't have wisdom is going to keep repeating and repeating and repeating. The wise person is going to take all of that information and try to figure out why it's not working. What can I do to improve upon it? How can I make it better? What can I do that will actually make it work? What am I missing? Is there something that I don't have knowledge-wise to make this work? Okay. And you can apply this in any aspect of your life with anything. And if you continue to do it over and over and over again, you're lacking the wisdom. But if you do something and it's not working and you're asking questions and you might try it once or twice more just to make sure that everything is supposed to be, make sure you didn't make any mistakes. Because let's say you made a mistake that first time and now it works the second time. And now you can hone in on it, or you don't. You now have to do it again just to find out what is it that I did different from the first time and the second time. That's the wisdom. That's where wisdom comes in. So somebody that is broaching that, just like reading a book, you might get some knowledge from it the first time, but then you read it again because you've increased in knowledge and you've increased in wisdom. You're now going to get more from that reading. You're going to see things you didn't see the first time, where, again, a person that isn't growing with their wisdom, with their experience, may not, So that's my thoughts.
Yeah, and to build that, I think that's a great point. I think as you were talking, it's about the wise person knows how to ask the right questions, right? To be in that observer, slow it down, right? I think that was a great example, to slow life down and to make sure that you look at it from the right angle, to know how to ask the right questions, to be curious, to always want to find out more and see what is really behind everything. So I think there's so much more to wisdom, and I think that that's exactly one of the reasons why it's the virtue. And as we said at the beginning, it's the foundational one of the virtues where everything builds upon. Because if you don't have the wisdom, you will not know what is just, you will not know how to apply courage, and you will not know what temperance means to you. So I think that's why it's the foundational cornerstone of philosophy, to know what is going on. And I think it also applies to yourself, right? If you look at yourself, and as you mentioned, some of the practical examples of doing the same things over and over again, that's also to your life. Why am I always getting into these jobs? Why is this always affecting me in such a way? So by asking yourself those questions and not necessarily trying to find the answers, but by looking at the questions, you pinpoint where there's some friction, where something is happening in your life. So for me, I think it's not only just about the knowledge, but also knowing that you need to keep asking, knowing that you don't know. As I think it was Socrates has said, I know that I don't know anything. So, and that from that basis, we have to keep going. We have to keep exploring. And again, that is one of the beautiful things that we're on life. That's what some of the purpose of our life is, to explore what our life means, is to explore how we can live a good life, is to explore what is the things that we need to, what we're struggling with and where we want to improve on. And then we do those experiments, right? We learn to live it. And the more you get into it, the more you really practice it, the more you see that life does slow down, right? That's why I like that advice that you were giving. Slow things down. It doesn't have to be a rush. You can just do it in your time and when you need to do it at your pace. Listen to yourself. So I think the wisdom comes from is the wise person has a curious mind, an open mind, one that is ready to expand itself, and also one that is ready to apply it in the right moment. So I think that is like, if I look at the wise mind of a wise person, that is kind of how I look at it. And a lot of the times you can even point to the mind of a child, right? We always look at a wise person from an old perspective, someone who's had a lot of life experience. But the children, they want to know, they want to learn, and they do it in a playful way. There's stories about even Socrates joining in with the kids who were playing. Be a child, have your mind open and free. So I think that is the more restrictions we put on ourselves, the more we close off the capability of developing and attaining that wisdom that we need to live the right life. So yeah, I agree. It's about experimenting, doing things, checking it, doing it over again, trying to find new ways to do it, keep exploring. I think that's also what makes life great to experience, right? It makes life lovely to live. And I think that is part of the wisdom, to have that information, to keep asking those questions, and to really learn how to live the best life for yourself and for those around you.
Yep. Yes, absolutely. And I think the other thing about wisdom is you have to keep the mind open, like you've said. You have to know within yourself that you can learn more. And as long as you're open to learning more, it's like Bryce always says, you come to the conversation in good faith. I'll converse with anybody if they're coming there in good faith, because anybody that I can converse with, I'm going to learn something. And I might, even if it's the most minuscule thing, it's still something. And everybody can learn something from somebody, I mean, that's just it, whether it's how they talk, where they're from, what's, acceptable in their culture versus what's acceptable in your culture, or what's acceptable in their belief system and what's not acceptable in your belief system. And instead of looking at things as right or wrong, you open your mind up. Why do they think that way? Why do they have that belief system? Is their belief system any better than my belief system? Is that belief system harmful? Is my belief system harmful? Or can both belief systems be there at the same time and both be good? Yes, they can, and once you can accept that I don't have to agree with you, you don't have to agree with me, and we both can still be doing good, we can be on different paths. Everybody has a path in this life. And again, I bring it back to the line. Everybody is in that same line of life, and we just, our routes in getting to the end are going to be different. They're individually, we're all so different, and yet we're all on that same path in life, so I might take a more scenic route, which I like the scenic routes, and other people might be, hey, from point A to point B, I'm just going to get there as quick as I can and do as little as I can through the process, or whatever the case may be. We're all different, and that's part of wisdom, is recognizing that we all have different beliefs, we all have different lifestyles, we all have different ideologies on how this world should be, but we all can live in it together. And I think it was Marcus Aurelius who said that we have to tolerate each other. We have to be tolerable because we're all here. Let's be tolerable of each other. Let's learn from each other. And I think if you're more open to learning from each other, you don't have to work as hard to tolerate people, because you're going to find that there's a lot more commonality than there is difference.
Yeah, and I agree. And I think the wise person is able to listen and learn from those who critique him. So I believe, I agree with the good faith aspect, but even when people come out of bad faith, the wise person is still able to look at what they've said, and instead of just, they're trying to insult me, they're trying to do this and that, and even look at that and say, well, maybe there's some truth there, maybe there's something there that I can use or take without letting that affect you too much, right? Without making, then we kind of separate the ego, because the ego will kind of take that as an attack, while the wise person will see that as something to make progress, to improve on, to. And I think that is another aspect of applying wisdom to your life, to always keep improving, always, as we say, don't focus on the goal, focus on the journey, right? It's not the goal that creates your character, it's the journey that makes you who you are. And I think that is one of those wise, the wise person will focus on that instead of looking at what someone's saying, they're trying to hurt me, what is being said, and then apply it, and then take it for what you can use it for.
Yes. We got a little hate mail here, Benny. We got a little hate mail from
Bryce. Good.
I'm kidding. It's not hate mail. I respectfully disagree with Benny. I only have so much time to learn things and less time to experience them in practice. I can accept others' experiences and knowledge as my own in certain circumstances. I kind of read that snarky. I respectfully disagree with Benny. I have only so much time to learn things and less time to experience them in practice. I can accept others' experiences and knowledge as my own in certain circumstances. There's a reason why I did this, okay? Sometimes when people say things, it can be taken the wrong way, okay? And this is part of applying that wisdom that we're talking about. Now, I could have been sincere in my first reading of this and I could have made Bryce sound like an ass, okay? I only have so much time to learn things and less time to experience them in practice. I can accept others' experience and knowledges as my own in certain circumstances. That can sound condescending, and yet Bryce is actually making a statement of, as I interpret it, that he values his time, and what he chooses to learn and what he chooses to experience and put in practice is based upon the value that he has set upon his time. And when it comes to others' experiences and knowledge, and utilizing that as his own in certain circumstances, is based upon what he deems worthy of his time. Where I respectfully disagree with Bryce, I think that anyone and everything is worth my time if I am willing at that point in time to take the time to apply myself there. And sometimes we miss out on a lot of great experiences because we didn't think it was worth our time. We don't know the road that we would have gone down if we would have taken that path, because we chose not to. And I personally think every path is worth exploring. Now, how long I stay on that path is another story. So I think every path is worth exploring.
Yeah, and I think that is a good point to make, and I kind of feel where I know where Bryce is coming from. It's that the good faith versus bad faith aspect, and I agree, that it's what you said. How long do you let that go, right? How long do you allow that person to be in your life? And you can, at one point, you can say, okay, this is enough, right? I think that is important to kind of set your boundaries, especially if there's other people around. So if people come out of you in bad faith, okay, that's important to set your boundaries, but you can still learn from it. You can still say, okay, why does this affect me so much? And I kind of, see things, everything around us that happens to us is a mirror. Right? Everything that all the externals, they teach us something about ourselves. Why am I affected by this so much? So even when someone comes out of you in bad faith, And it's up to you to say, okay, I don't want to deal with this person because it's not the right intention. So that's your right to kind of set the boundaries. But you can still learn from that interaction. You can learn from every interaction that happens to you. And because it's, and again, if we're talking with, Bryce is there, Bryce loves to use data points. And that is what it is, right? And if you look at it from that aspect, it is data points. And even if someone comes out of you in bad faith, we could say, okay, was there something that I can work with? And you don't have to sit with it for a long time because it is valuable. And there's probably more people who have a better idea of what you need to improve on yourself. Then you can listen more to them. But it wouldn't be fair to, because in the universe, there isn't anything as good and bad, right? That's what the Stoics believe. It's just events that happen to you, and we apply the label of bad. Sometimes people come at us in good faith, but we don't see it as such, right? We don't see it in that manner. And that's something that we add to it. So it is all information that we receive. And it's the wise person, I think, in my opinion, is able to, okay, limit it. If you feel disrespected, that's up to you. That is, I think that's important as well, to set your boundaries, to be just, but also to know how to take it in. And I agree with Bryce said, we can learn from other people's experience. It's better to learn from other people's experience.
Paul is wrong too. I was saying we don't know how much time we have. It's unknown, limited at best. All right, I agree with that. We don't know how much time we have. It is unknown, and it is limited at best. I can't put all of my knowledge into practice. I can add others' experiences to my toolkit as well. I agree. I can't put all of my knowledge into practice, but who says I have to put all of my knowledge into practice? I don't need to put all of my knowledge into practice. Sometimes having that knowledge may serve no purpose at all. And yet, it still serves a purpose. And the purpose is knowing that it serves no purpose at all. In other words, when I experience people that come at me in bad faith, I am learning more about this bad faith person and why they're coming at me in bad faith. So that down the road, as I experience more bad faith people, I will know who to spend time with learning something from and who not to. And it increases my experiences in the aspect of knowing that this certain person, I already know where they're going. I already know that they're not here in good faith. I already know that this conversation is going to take this road. So I'm going another path. See you later. It has given me the knowledge to know that this is a person I don't want to converse with. So even if we don't think we're putting that knowledge into practice, I believe that sometimes we put it to practice without knowing.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it's nice. I can see Bryce, pounding his fist. He's like, no, but I think there's truth in everything that's being said. And I think it's really important to kind of look at it as, a lot of the times we are looking for that one thing that we want to do, right? A lot of people, when they're looking for a job, they're looking for the job, right? They're just focusing on one thing. Or if you want to go on a trip, you're looking for that one experience to have. But understanding what you don't want and understanding the people you don't want to deal with, or how the information that you don't really need to use. As you said, I don't need to become a brain surgeon. So why should I spend my time learning about brain surgery?
Exactly.
I don't need to do that. But at least and I think that's why a lot of people, they get kind of frustrated because they want to find that one perfect thing that works for them, while they're ignoring all the valuable information that life is giving them for the things that they don't want. Hey, I don't want to do this job. Okay, then don't do it. Forget about that. Go to do something else. Explore different avenues. But don't disregard it as useless information. It is very valuable information because it's telling you a lot about who you are, what your priorities are, where your interests are. And we know, as we talk about things on social media and in spaces and here, we get to know and learn who these people are who come at us in bad faith. So the next time, okay, I'm not going to give you that time, but you've learned from it again. So I do think that the wise person knows how to use their time. I think that that is really important, what Brian said as well, and what you said. You know how to use your time, but you also know how to use the information in the right way, and then to apply it. And application doesn't always mean the action, but it also means the action to disregard it, right? So I think that that is I think that that is kind of a great way to kind of talk about this concept. It's a difficult one, right? It's a wisdom that requires a lifetime to really get to it.
Yes, yes. You know, and again, great talk, guys. Thank you, Bryce. We love you. We love you, my friend. And for those that don't know, Bryce has he's on Wednesdays and Saturdays on Twitter Spaces with Benny, and they do a Stoic space. Wednesdays, I think it's Bryce's space on Wednesdays, right, Benny?
No, it's my space, the Stoic space on Wednesdays, and
Yep.
Bryce is on Saturday.
All right. And Bryce is doing Seneca right now, and Benny does topics and discusses them. Both are great. You need to check them out. I'm going to add one real quick thing and all that. I mentioned, like, I have no interest in brain surgery. Okay. I don't want to be a brain surgeon. If somebody comes to me and starts talking to me about brain surgery, I'm not going to walk away. I'm going to listen to this person talk, because what if this person says something that might spark an interest where I now have an interest in brain surgery? Maybe there's something that I didn't know, so I'm willing to listen, but I'm also willing to only listen to a certain point where, I still don't really have an interest in brain surgery, but thank you for sharing that information with me. I really do appreciate that. So there's a way to handle things too, and I still think that people need to leave their minds open to certain things, even bad faith conversations, or good faith conversations that don't have an appeal to you. With that said, any final thoughts before I do all of our closing things?
Yeah, real quick to what you said, and I think that that was really interesting, and it kind of brings it back to one of the quotes you have in the opening, where Zian says, "We have 2 ears and 1 mouth. We should talk to less and listen more." So a wise person also knows when to listen and when to speak. So if it's on a topic that you don't know anything about, not know enough about, hey, it's your time to listen. And then you find maybe a moment to speak once you have gained that knowledge, right? So the wise person knows when to choose the moments to act, to speak, and most of all, to listen properly to what someone else is saying. So no, I appreciate this talk again, and wisdom is a great conversation, an important topic, and it's one I can talk about for even longer. But I also appreciate the people watching this, that they probably, we talked about time, but yeah, there's a lot of ways to look at it back, and we'll talk about virtues next time again, the others. But no, a great conversation, Paul. Thanks. Thank you very much.
Definitely. And since you brought up a Zeno, I'm going to bring up a Zeno. Well-being is attained by little and little, and nevertheless is no little thing itself. All right. Anyways, thank you everybody for joining us. We will be back next week. We will continue on the cardinal virtues. We will go more into temperance, justice, and courage next week. My show on Wednesday with Shadow Fox, The Flow. Join us. It's going to be a great show. Thursday, Who Wrote the Bill? We will go over another bill. I believe the Vellum is going to return on Friday. I still got to talk to Mr. Wolfrick and find out, but I believe it's going to return on Friday. And then we have on Saturday, Democratic Philosophy. So make sure you check us out. Hold on. Whoops. There we go. Robocalls, I tell you. Anyways, check us out Monday through Saturday. Right now, Tuesdays and Fridays are still up in the air, but once everything's up and going, it's Monday through Saturday, 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific, in the moment with Paul Sisler. And on those days, I have my guests that come in and host certain topics, like we have Benny today with Becoming Stoic. So feel free to join us. And again, thank you everybody for coming in. And remember, be kind, be happy, and make good things come your way. Thank you.